Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, where we decode the confusing world of business so you don't have to. Today we're looking at Vyome Holdings, and let's just say they've had a very busy few weeks with some interesting shifts happening behind the scenes. This is an 8K filing, which is like a company's instant messaging service to the SEC. They use it to announce major news that shareholders really need to know about right away. Think of it as a company's public diary for urgent updates. Vyome Holdings, which you might remember as Reshape Life Sciences Inc., was formerly known by that name. Companies sometimes rebrand or restructure, and this filing tells us they're pushing forward under the Vyome Holdings name. Now, let's talk about their stock. They have common stock, which is basically a small piece of ownership in the company. And you can trade this ownership on a big stock market called the NASDAQ Capital Markets. The ticker symbol or the shorthand code you use to find their stock is HIND. Vyome Holdings is checking the box, confirming they are an emerging growth company. This basically means they're a smaller, newer company that's still growing, and they get to follow some slightly different, often less strict reporting rules compared to older, bigger companies. The first big piece of news is that an agreement they entered into on August 20th. This is an amendment to an existing deal, essentially updating an earlier contract. This amendment changes an equity distribution agreement. Think of this as a deal where the company agrees to sell its shares, its little pieces of ownership, to an investment firm. The partner in this deal is Maxim Group LLC, who is acting as their exclusive sales agent. Their job is to help Vyome Holdings sell its shares. The exciting part here is that they've significantly increased the amount of money they can raise through selling shares. They're now allowed to sell up to $12 million worth of their stock. This is a big jump from the previous limit. This is happening through what's called an at-the-market public offering. This means they can sell their shares gradually whenever the market conditions are good without having to do a massive single big sale. It's like fishing with many small lines instead of one big net. They're able to do this because they have a standing permit from the SEC, a shelf registration statement, that allows them to sell more shares over time. This filing updates the permit for the larger amount of money they plan to raise. Now, for something that might seem a bit dry but is actually quite important, there's a change in their auditor. This is who checks their financial books to make sure everything is accurate. Their previous auditor, Haskell & White LLT, has been dismissed as of August 18th. And a new firm, Crichton CPLT, has been brought in as their new independent auditor. This is for their fiscal year that will end on December 31st, 2025. This change wasn't a surprise. It was approved by the company's own audit committee and then confirmed by the board of directors. This is standard procedure and shows they followed the proper steps. The filing is also very clear that there were no arguments or disagreements between Vyome Holdings and their old auditors, Haskell & White, about how they handled their accounting or reported their financial information. This is a good sign. It means the old auditor didn't leave because of any major financial red flags or disputes. However, there's a critical detail here. The old auditors did include a note in their report for the year ending December 31st, 2024. This note, often called a going concern warning, basically said there's a significant question about whether the company can continue its operations in the near future. This is a serious issue that investors should always pay close attention to. It suggests financial pressures might be a concern. Interestingly, the filing also mentions that RSM US LLC audited their financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2023. This indicates a prior auditor change even before Haskell. Having multiple auditor changes can sometimes be a signal for investors to dig a bit deeper. And importantly, the new auditors, Crichton have not been consulted on any tricky accounting issues or past disputes before being hired. This also suggests a clean break from any potential problems with the previous accounting or auditing. They've also provided a letter from Haskell & White confirming they agree with what Vyome Holdings is saying here. This letter, filed as an exhibit, is another piece of assurance that the auditor change was handled properly and without major conflict. Finally, we get to the exhibits. These are the actual supporting documents for everything mentioned in the report. Exhibit 1.1 is the actual amendment to that important share distribution agreement we talked about. Exhibit 5.1 is likely a legal opinion on the shares they are issuing, which is standard practice when selling new stock. And Exhibit 16.1 is that crucial letter from the former auditors Haskell & White confirming their agreement with the company statements about the auditor change. And Exhibit 104 is related to the digital tagging of the document for easier electronic processing, which is a modern requirement. The report itself is signed on August 20th, 2025 by Venkat Nelabotla, the Chief Executive Officer. This is the person ultimately responsible for the company's filings and operations. So what's the story here? Vyome Holdings is making a significant move to raise more capital by selling up to $12 million in stock. This suggests they need cash for growth, expansion, or perhaps to shore up their finances. The fact that they're significantly increasing the capital they can raise is a strong signal of their intentions. However, we can't ignore that going concern warning from their previous auditors. It paints a picture of a company that might be facing financial challenges, making this capital raise even more critical. They're essentially trying to keep the business healthy by bringing in new funds. The change in auditors, while handled correctly according to the filing, also warrants attention. When a company changes auditors, especially shortly after a going concern statement, investors should be extra vigilant. It's not necessarily a bad thing on its own, but combined with other signals, it definitely calls for a closer look. In my opinion, Vyome Holdings is in a high stakes phase. They're betting on growth and need the capital to fuel it. The market will be watching closely to see how effectively they deploy these funds and whether they can address the underlying financial concerns that led to the going concern warning. It's a classic story of a company trying to get back on solid ground through strategic financing. The success of this capital raise will be a major determinant of their future trajectory. What's your take on these developments at Vyome Holdings? Do you see this capital raise as a sign of strength or a signal of desperation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more corporate deep dives, and don't forget to join our Discord community for more in-depth discussions. You'll find the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.